You are Locked On Vikings POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Vikings, they moved to 8-2. They got their third win in a row today. Final score in Nashville, 23-13. What's going on? Back in the lab, another Vikings POSTCAST right here, Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Full crew today. Gophers legend Ron Johnson, Luke Braun, host of Locked On Vikings, Sam Ekstrom. Fellas, we got to talk about the stifling red-hot defense, plus another epic Justin Jefferson milestone to cover at least a little bit later on. But first, quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Hillsdale College. Right now, go to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. Absolutely no cost, and they make it so easy to get started. Okay, guys. Ron, Vikings coming off that weird game in Jacksonville. They're trying to make it 3 straight wins. Defense was just lights out again. They were phenomenal. Offense does just enough on the road. Bottom line, they moved to 8-2 on the year. How are the vibes? How should we feel? What's your 8 topics after this one?
What's the coffee order?
Is that where he's at?
I don't know.
We can't hear Ron.
We are audioless on Ron. I'll answer.
Jump
Ron,
in there, Sam. Yeah,
Ron,
jump
you
in
can troubleshoot. Yeah, I mean, I think for a third consecutive week, we've seen that. Congrats to the Houston Texans. You're going to win the AFC South because those are bad football teams in that division that the Vikings have just taken care of. And it wasn't always pretty. I thought today was a lot of maybe karmic buildup for the Vikings after the Sam Darnold face mask and a couple other moments during the year because there were some serious EPA swings thanks to officiating calls today that might have been borderline.
They got them all back in one game, it felt like. Would have been nice to spread a couple out.
Yeah. Can we get those in the division next time?
Yeah.
All evened out. But, again, I feel like the offense probably performed a little better than the results. You drop a touchdown late that could have put you on 30 points. That would have been a pretty nice day. Running game wasn't really there, but I thought Sam Darnold was just a good decision maker today. And if you're looking for progress, I thought they made progress in that regard. I thought the defense was right on par with what they've been doing. So I think you walk away feeling pretty good. You weren't sweating too much in the second half. Comfortable double-digit win. And you've now taken care of 2/3 of a 3-game road trip.
Yeah, I thought Sam Darnold was, you were all looking for the bounce back, right? How's he going to look? I thought he flushed it, and I thought he did a good job moving on. He came out looking pretty crispy, smooth getting through his reads. I will say, too, I thought, at least in the first half especially, this was arguably his best game, escaping pressure, making plays with his feet. I know things kind of stalled out a little bit in the second half, but early on, whether it was a scramble or just keeping his eyes downfield, hitting a chunk play, I thought he was great in that department. I know he got kind of lucky with another turnover in the fourth quarter, but all in all, did you like what you saw from Sam Darnold today after what we were hoping would be a bounce back, Luke?
Yeah, I would call it a bounce back because it was a crisp day. There was a lot of those moments where he would either flush out and run or get it to the check down, stay safe with the football. We got to talk about getting 2 hands on it a little bit. Had 3 fumbles and lost 2 of them, but it was. And one that was almost a fumble too. But yeah, that of all of the games where we're talking about things about Sam Darnold, right? Like pretty good, a couple of bozo moments, but less than we've been. This is, I think, one of his cleaner games of this year, maybe the cleanest game this year. And then things kind of cut the engines at the end, and you went really run heavy because you were up 2 scores with 6 minutes to go and all that. But it was, I thought he did a great job in particular navigating a lot of pressure. It was not a good game up front, and Sam Darnold kind of erased that.
I was thinking about this too. This is game 3 of Wes Phillips down on the sideline, I believe. Maybe 4. I'm pretty sure it's 3, though. And I remember the hope was, this at minimum would help clean up that procedural stuff they kept having issues with, specifically versus Detroit. And then it was the Rams game, getting the play in quicker, faster communication, all that stuff. Now, they've won all 3 of those games. They're 3-0, so that's good. Colts game, 21 points. Jags, 12 points. Today, 23 points. I know a lot of this conversation is always going to come back to the turnovers, but Ron, I think you're still on mute, but if you want to jump in, what's the vibe check for you, I think, just offensively now with how they've looked the past couple weeks?
We're still having audio issues with Ron there.
Yeah, maybe no.
You might have to go out and back in and get your mic reset, but
live show.
Yeah, live show.
Live production.
Live show.
But like, yeah, I can jump in on that. I think that a lot of the bad stuff that happened to the Titans just happened because Will Levis just couldn't chew on this one. Mm-hmm. And I think this is like a thing of the Flores. This was like the ideal Flores defense game where you will accept a couple of explosive chunks when they catch you in zero, man on man, nobody behind you, no help, no save. And that like happens. But at the end of the day, they scored 13 points. You turned them over on downs twice. You had that interception at the end. And they really couldn't get anything going except for one explosive play and a short field they got off of the turnover at the beginning. Those are like the two bad things that happened to the defense, and it was pretty much just a butt kicking, especially up front. And that Titans O-line, we don't need to say a lot about it. But up front, guys like Bullard, guys like Harrison Phillips, Jerry Tillery, those guys, I think, really showed out. That's not always the most visible thing, but I think we're gonna. The more we get into this tape and get into this week, we're going to like what we see.
Yeah, and even on a day where the run was not established at all today, you still had 24 first downs, and the Vikings were 2 first downs shy of tying a team record in first downs over a 3-week span, which 83.
Yeah, we had like 15 play drives, 11 play drives. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
We got Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson's back. Ron,
that
vibe
parking
check.
Garage acoustics.
Vibe check. How we feeling right now after that one?
No, so it's a Sam Darnold redemption game in my opinion. You know, he had the bunch of interceptions in the first, like last week, and so everybody was down on him. Pretty clean game other than, a couple handoff, the toss, fumble, and then the sack is not really his fault for a fumble there. I can't really put that on him per se. But a clean game, no interceptions, got the ball up his hands pretty quick. You could tell Kevin O'Connell kind of was sticking to like, hey, this is what you need to do. Even at the end of the game when he had the grounding penalty, that ended up being a better play than throwing it and possibly getting an interception because the receiver runs the wrong route. It seemed like somebody wasn't there. But that's where I go with it. As far as the vibe is this is a second place in the NFC North team. The Lions are the best team in the NFL probably, and they are going to have a tough game at the end of the year. I think it's going to come down to the Lions-Vikings most likely in the NFC Championship, and I don't know if you could write a better script for a season like this where possibly the Lions or the Vikings get to a Super Bowl in our lifetimes. And so, especially for me being a Detroit kid, I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. Other than that, Justin Jefferson, one of the best receivers we've seen. And Will Levis proves that, he can make plays every once in a while if they give him a clean pocket. And the Vikings defensive backs, I don't blame some of those deep balls on them. I blame it on Brian Flores for getting a little too greedy, playing man with the wrong guys, knowing the situation. If you know he's backed up, don't give that up. Like make him matriculate down the field because that's like I would have had guys like in cover 4 backing up, getting after him with 4, knowing the goal line isn't back. He's like literally can hit his head on the goal post. You have to back up and force him to try to find somebody when he's already scared because he might get a safety.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker versus Nick Mullins NFC Championship game. You guys heard it here first. I want to do a deep dive on the defense. Let's say that I got one more. I feel like we got to talk about this before we go to segment 2 because I already can't wait for Luke's film breakdown on Dalton Reisner this week in the offensive line. What's the vibe check on the new starting 5? Because this has always felt like a split camp. Half the people like Ingram and the run blocking. Half the camp has been banging the table for Dalton Reisner just really from the get-go back in training camp week 1-ish. But who's on what side of the fence right now? And I know it's tough without watching the tape, but
it's hard
how do
to
we
see
feel
live.
after today? Yeah.
But not great. I mean, there was pressure all day. The run game was pretty anemic. I'll be curious to see just who all that stuff is on, right? Like they got a couple of good dudes up front. The Titans have a good D-line. The Titans have a good defense. Like we have to remember that with all this. You put up 23 and comfortably beat a team with a good defense and a bad offense. That's a good game. But up front, yeah, you definitely had some issues, but it's so hard to figure out who's on what and what was supposed to be where when you're just watching live from the broadcast angle. So I'll put a pin in that one, but I do plan on doing a lot of content about that specifically this week.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been in pro Reisner camp. I've been saying to make this move for a while, and I'm glad they eventually did it because I think if you can maximize your ability to pass protect with a quarterback that has a little bit of trouble holding on to the ball, has a little bit of trouble taking sacks. If you can mitigate those devastating plays, I think you make that move, and I think Dalton Risner gives them the chance to have the best pass blocking 5 out there. He got steamrolled on one notable rep today. It was a key third down. Darnold had to throw it away, I believe. That was the only time I noticed Risner. We'll have to look more closely at why the running game couldn't get going. Was that something to do with the blocking or what happened there? But Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat are formidable interior foes. I mean, those guys are legit. And you did not get dominated by Jeffrey Simmons today the way you did when you played the Titans in the last regular season game 4 years ago, Justin Jefferson's debut, when Simmons was all over the field. I think I only
Drew Samia, baby. We pounded the table for him, too.
Samia. I'll take the heat on that one. That was me. I'll take the heat on that.
Got to get Josh Klein out of there, man.
Yeah. All right, lots more to get into. We should touch on this Justin Jefferson milestone because it's pretty crazy. Plus, we got to do a deep dive on this defense. 5 more sacks today. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours on end. Right now, Hillsdale College, they're offering you more than 40 free courses, including Introduction to Free Market Economics and the Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and all of it is on the Hillsdale easy courses, self-paced, that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go even further with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy their daily lectures. Right now, go to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. Absolutely no cost, and it's so easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. Go sign up today. We're also sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, now with more than 10 million members to date. For me and my money, it's just by far the easiest. It's the most exciting way to get in on all the action while you watch your favorite sports and you watch your favorite players. It's so simple. All you got to do, you pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, and you watch the winnings roll in. Football season, we're starting to get into crunch time now. Things really starting to heat up. So whether it's anytime touchdowns, could be receptions, tackles, sacks, you name it, they got it. Take your pick on more or less. Add them to your Prize Picks entry today. Tonight, I'm loving Justin Herbert over 239 passing yards versus the Bengals. He's hit that mark in 4 of his last 5 games. I also think that matchup has all the makings of a low-key shootout. Plus, don't forget, Prize Picks now offers Apple Pay, quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Right now, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly with any $5 wager. Win or lose, $5 wager, you're getting $50 instantly with promo code LOCKEDONNFL only with Prize Picks. Okay, we're going to talk defense, I promise, but JJ, another insane milestone. Most receiving yards by a player in his first 5 seasons in Vikings history. He passed Randy Moss today. Obviously, that's pretty cool, but he also broke the NFL record for that. He passed Torrey Holt. He needed 55 yards today. He got 88. I watched Moss as a kid. I watched Torrey Holt on the Rams. To see this guy surpass both of them so quickly with 7 more games left on the season, and just knowing he missed half the season last year too, I'm kind of at a loss here, guys. I mean, he just, at this point, really, honestly, nothing really surprises you anymore. The one thing I was thinking about when they were showing those graphics, you got to have one common denominator. All 3 of those guys, they had a quarterback that could get him the ball consistently, and they had an offensive-minded coach to scheme you open for all those years. JJ's had both those things with Kirk and now Darnold, KOC at the helm. But Ron, what can you say? He just keeps doing it year after year, man. This is incredible.
Yeah, it's an incredible feat. I mean, and the thing is, think about it. Last year, playing with Josh Dobbs, he got hurt. So, I mean, he missed some games. This could have been done, and who knows when if he stays healthy. If he had Kevin O'Connell his entire career versus Mike Zimmer. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can go off of to say, what could this guy look like? But at the end of the day, I think the announcer said it, when he finishes, it'll be cool to see where he ends up. Because, I mean, the sky's the limit for this kid. He is the best player in the NFL right now as far as receivers go, if not best player overall. And in history, I mean, there's still Randy Moss. There's still Jerry Rice. There's still Terrell Owens. The one thing I will say is we won't know until the very end. But Randy Moss, if he had not jumped around, if he had not, bounced around some, like every time I see like random Randy Moss in 49ers uniforms, I'm like, man, what is going on here? And so that's the only thing that I think threw him off was, bouncing around a little bit, but still one of the greatest. Jerry Rice, he played with the same team for most of his career. And let's just hope Justin Jefferson finishes as a Viking.
Luke, you had a great breakdown on Twitter the other day of just JJ's football IQ, the football awareness. It was versus the Jags. He bended his route back to the sticks. He got that extra separation versus the DB, got the first down. It was a Darnold rollout. Just speaks to how smart this dude is, though, too. The instincts sometimes you just can't teach, right?
Yeah, there is so much more to his game than you would typically. You look at a good receiver and go, oh, maybe it's because he's fast or because he's big or agile or whatever. But the way that he draws up, like the way that he'll run just like a basic route, right? Like a dig over the middle. The decision about whether to stem that in or stem that out, you can always see the vision and knowing, okay, I've got this coverage. Here's what's happening underneath. Here's what else. Like it always is like makes more sense in the grander context of the play. And that is what really sets you to the next level. On that one, it was a scramble drill where he just knew where the sticks are. He knew he needed to carve back to the quarterback. So he deepens it a little bit and uses his physicality to do that. And it's so funny. Like every week the Vikings will put out like things to watch for this week, what milestones are we watching for? Every single week, Justin Jefferson's passing someone on the all-time list for something. Like every single week, there is something new. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. Defensively, finally, let's get into it. Getting home with 4 guys today, sometimes even 3 guys. That was a huge key to me just watching this game, how everything unfolded, the way they got after Will Levis. 5 sacks on the day. Everybody knows Flores, he likes to dial up the blitz just in general, but really it's first and second down, and then the disguises is the big key to kind of really just confuse, especially these young quarterbacks, confuse everybody on third down. You don't know who's coming, who's going, who's dropping back. You got to have such good communication. And also, I've noticed lately, the past couple weeks, versus the Lions and Rams, there's a lot of assignment errors, guys looking around, hands up, you're supposed to be here, what's going on? The last few weeks, they have cleaned that up, down to down, drive to drive. I think it's been kind of a thing of beauty to really watch evolve and unfold. It reminds me of last year, Sam, the way the defense really hit its peak, and we got towards that Raider game, that ugly 3-0 Raider game, but the defense, man, they just go out and dominate and help you be in a position offensively to not have to do much, hold on to the ball, of course, go score a couple touchdowns, and we're going to win this thing more weeks than not.
Yeah, Vikings defense continues to make hapless offenses look even more hapless than usual. We were texting about this during the game, and as we pointed out on the Minnesota Football Party on Thursday, on FanDuel, Vikings were minus 130 to have 5 or more sacks in the game. So more likely than not, they were going to have 5 sacks in this game. And they had 5. What do you know about that? How good is FanDuel? How good are
peer pressure to Reef into taking 6? That's so funny.
Arif was sitting on 6. That's unfortunate. But the sacks were plentiful. This defense is opportunistic. And you know what? I'm not even mad about getting caught in some blitzes because Will Levis was bottom 3 in the league at taking sacks under pressure, bottom 3 in the league in passer rating under pressure. That was the game plan. I mean, that was the scouting report, is that if you pressure him, he is going to give you the ball. He's going to take sacks. So for them to throw some blitzes at him and try to make that happen, I respect it. You don't want to give up a 98-yard touchdown, but I understand the logic there. In the end, you gave up one, let's call it almost fluky, almost an anomaly, 1 defensive touchdown in that game in 2 in 3 weeks. I'm not going to rip Flores for really anything today because that defense is swarming right now. And the front 4, let's give them credit. They were getting home without the aid of the blitz. Jonathan Grenard, too, all over the place against the run. That's a nice little perk when you're one of the top pass rushers in the NFL is getting after it in the run game.
Well, that's a good point because Callahan, during his weekly pressers, he specifically gave a shout-out to Grenard and talked about this guy is one of the more underrated defensive ends. He's the total package, complete player, not just a pass rusher. He's doing it really in the run phase as well, just as much as getting after the quarterback. I think they showed this graphic on the game on the broadcast. Van Ginkel and Grenard alone have already teamed up and combined for 15 sacks. And I think Van Ginkel got another one, so I think it's 16 now. Then you throw in Cashman. We already talked about last week the difference he makes. We saw it with our own eyes, the 2 games that he was out versus the Lions and the Rams. Ron, I don't know if you can say enough about how far Kwesi knocked this free agent class out of the ballpark, can you?
Yeah, no, I mean, so Van Ginkel, Grenard, and Cashman alone, I think that's the key. You think about the green dot too. Cashman being out,
Yeah.
Ivan Pace being a green dot. I think it makes him, I'm not gonna say mature, but think a little bit too much. Where he's more like I made the comment on the pregame show today that I imagine he's like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and when you think about that, he's more like Michelangelo, and Blake Cashman would be like Donatello. You got one guy, and then of course the leader is probably going to be Van Ginkel or Grenard, and then Raphael is going to be one of those two out of that. So, but when you think about that linebacker core as the Ninja Turtles, he's suited to be more of a Michelangelo. He's not suited to lead. And we've seen the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when like somebody else tried to lead other than Leonardo, and it doesn't work. And I think that's the key for this team right now. Blake Cashman is the guy that needs to call the plays, get the guys lined up. Ivan Pace doesn't need to think. When he doesn't think and you see him get up to the quarterback in the A gap, he's totally different. He's olaying guys. He's a lot faster. When he's thinking, sometimes he's overthinking, like, am I in the right spot? Did I get these guys lined up right? And it didn't feel right. So Cashman makes him a lot better.
Yeah, and then Shaq Griffin, and then you flip over to the offense. Sam and I talked about this last week after the Jags game. John Parker, Romo, maybe single-footedly won them, or at least kept them in that Jags game. Cam Robinson, midseason. Cam Akers, 3 for 3 for the trifecta with those guys. Those moves, you put them all together in a hat, it might end up saving their season and help them win maybe a game come playoff time. They've been huge. Luke, who else you want to maybe highlight on defense, an unsung hero, just a guy you want to shout out, maybe give some flowers to defensively as well?
I mean, I was just going to talk about Van Ginkel and Grenard because that was truly a take over the game performance, which is what you expect when you're going up against a team like the Titans that have had, I mean, they're having a TJ Clemmings sized problem right now at right tackle. Yeah. They're going through it. And so you need to go in there and blow that up, but also just the finish on it that, you're actually causing these plays to break down rather than letting Will Levis run around. And he's actually pretty good at that. The run around, he made a couple of those plays under pressure. Like he has also made enough mistakes where the stats are really bad, but like you still got to take that seriously. So yeah, it was truly dominant on both edges all day.
Offense or defense now? What's the devil's advocate? What's the thing you guys are still comfortable with getting kind of nitpicky at that still maybe worries you down the stretch? 7 games left before the playoffs. Defensively, I heard somebody say, well, yeah, they turned it around the last 3 weeks, but they played Joe Flacco, Mac Jones, and Will Levis. Okay, I get it. All right, but
there's a thing to that, and we could talk about it on the party tomorrow.
Yeah, we should.
But like when you play a bad offense and they have their worst game of the season against you, like there is signal to that.
That's
when anyone has their worst game of the season against you, there is signal to that, right? It's not just a ho hum. Oh, the Titans had the Jags had a bad game. No, they had their worst game of the year, and it was very clear that like the Titans just couldn't chew on this one. They just didn't have the tools to take on the Brian Flores defense. And when your scheme is such that you can just walk into games and the other team just kind of can't handle it sometimes in the NFL, yeah, you take those all day long. So will another better offense score more? Yeah, of course, they're better. But you only play 17 of these, and when you get to basically sleepwalk through one with a B- effort and win by 2 scores, like hard to be really mad about that.
Yeah, 100%. Sam, you want to jump in there and add anything? Or we can move on to Coach's Corner as well, whatever you want.
Well, devil's advocate would just be that in the last 3 games, let's see, you've scored 56 points. That's about a 19-point average. And you've gone, against 3 of the weaker teams in the AFC. You would like to show a competency that you can score in large numbers if you need to. The Lions hung how many today?
52?
On Jacksonville, the team that
beat them to a
scored
pulp.
12 against. Like that's what you're up against. That's who you're going to need to play in Week 18, maybe to win the division. That's who you could face in the playoffs, potentially. That's what you're competing against. So, yes, the Vikings defense will win them a lot of games, but if you're against Seattle and Geno Smith is throwing 40 times for 400 yards and you need to score 34 points in Seattle, I still don't know if we're sure this offense can get that done consistently. So that'd be the nitpick here. You've had some sleepy point scoring offensive performances, and it's all about finishing the deal. It's all about making that play, in the opponent's red zone, scoring 7, not 3. Again, I thought today the number probably doesn't reflect the talent or the efficiency that you showed on offense, 23, it's pretty average. You probably played a little better than that and just couldn't close the deal on some occasions.
Yeah, and we'll see what the tape shows, but I will say, too, some people are going to say, how about this devil's advocate or getting nitpicky? The run game, again, today was just okay. That Titans run defense, man, with Sweat from Texas in the second round, it's legit. It's pretty good. So I would pump the brakes on that one as well. All in all, I think we all know the impact Aaron Jones has made this year. A couple minutes left. Got to talk about this Bears game next week in Soldier Field. Plus, let's take a quick peek at the NFC North standings as well. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, FanDuel's giving you a chance at a huge return, $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 wager wins. I love FanDuel so much because when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Again, that's $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 wager wins. If it were me, I'd be looking at a heavy favorite money line situation to get my bonus bets. Maybe the Texans tomorrow night, for example, versus the Cowboys. Right now, you take them straight up. They're 7-point favorites, so you got to like your chances there. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Get in on some Sunday Night Football action while you're there as well. Bengals, Chargers in LA, current spread. Chargers by 1. Over-under sitting at 48.5. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 wager wins. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. By the way, as always, full deep dive on this one on the Minnesota Football Party with our guy Arif Hassan. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, keep up with all the action. Again, that's every Monday and every Thursday. Quick trivia question for you guys. Vikes haven't played the Titans in Nashville since 2016, 8 years ago. It was week 1. They won the game, 2 defensive touchdowns. Who were the 2 defensive touchdowns by? Shout them out if you know it. Anybody remember?
Kendricks and Hunter.
Nice.
Yeah. And happy anniversary, too, Luke. I know I'll never forget, day after your wedding.
Hey, wow, good shout out. Boy, the things you come up with, man, it's unbelievable. I remember the Kendricks pick 6 pretty clearly. I had to look up the Daniil Hunter 24-yard scoop and score. Vikes won that game 25-16. Sean Hill, 18 of 33, buck 86, 0 touchdowns, 0 picks. Real quick, as always, any injuries to report? Did I miss anything? Felt like another clean game, knock on wood.
Yeah.
Oliver ankle.
After the game, Kevin O'Connell said there was a little bit of an ankle issue with Josh Oliver. Jordan Addison had cramps. He'll be fine, but they couldn't get him back in.
Got it. All right. Final game of this 3-game road trip coming up in Soldier. Then you get 3 straight on home, by the way. So that's kind of nice. But Bears obviously really struggling on offense coming into today. Give me any early thoughts. You got a matchup, bullet points, whatever. Vikes Bears in Soldier, week 12. First thing that just comes to mind from a Vikings game plan lens, I guess, so to speak. Ron, what do you got? Vikings Bears.
Looking at the way the Bears played, as of late, Caleb Williams versus Brian Flores, I'm looking forward to what that's going to look like because easily Brian Flores put on one of his best shows. I mean, it was the defense got after the quarterback, but the biggest thing, and I said this time and time again, try to get home without sending 6 guys. And today we saw it. We saw 3 to 4 guys get home just by putting guys in the A gap. I hate to say it. Shout out to Mike Zimmer with the double A gap buster. He hasn't actually sent the double A gap guys and then dropped his ends a lot, but I think that's the next evolution of this Brian Flores defense. But shout out to that. That's what I want to see. I want to see these 5 to 6, 7 guys at the line of scrimmage and seeing if Caleb Williams can figure it out. I will say Caleb Williams runs he's not afraid to run the ball. And so I think that's the other cat and mouse game is who is going to spy Caleb Williams to make sure he doesn't get to run for 60 to 70 to 80 yards because I think he's willing to do that.
Luke, have you watched any film on Caleb at all? He got heated. He heated up, remember? I think it started in London, actually, versus the Jags. Now, a month later, they fire Shane Waldron. The sky's falling. What happened? And how do the Vikes expose this even more, I guess?
It's been kind of up and down, and I think the Bears have kind of been the same proposition every single week, which is Caleb's going to try to do a little bit too much, both pre and post snap. The interior is going to fall apart in front of you. Can you take advantage of that? And their defense is pretty good. It's going to be hard to move the ball. So this could be one that you end up, 19 to 17, and it's ugly and grindy, right? As it always is in Soldier. But the interior of that offensive line is an unfixable problem for the Bears. I don't think they have the guys to fix it, and I don't think they have. I mean, it's November now. They can't fix it. So if I'm the Vikings, I'm probably going to stunt a lot on the interior using Metellus, Pace, Cashman as part of those, but also, getting Jerry Tillery moving, those guys, and having Van Ginkel and Grenard stay upfield and stay to the outside a little bit. Because when Caleb likes to run, he likes to turn around and go upfield. He will go backwards on you. That's great for the defense. We love that. We want to encourage that. So I think that's going to be the case. And then you just need to, disguise those like Ron said. Give him a muddied, complicated look and make him sort it out. And he's going to hold the ball. He's going to take the time it takes to sort that out and try to buy that time. That's how he's been since college. And then hopefully you can chase him down and get sacks that way.
His bad when he's obviously not in rhythm, not in sync, and he's doing exactly what you talked about and just runs straight. But it reminds me of the bad of Bryce Young so far earlier. And I know he looked okay coming back, filling in for Andy Dalton. But there's some similar shades of the negatives so far that I see with Bryce Young and Caleb Williams. Sam, Vikes Bears in Soldier. For years, it was kind of back and forth in Soldier. They've actually done a lot better in Soldier, I will say, the last couple of years. But I know it's only one game, but division games, they always mean a little extra playoff seeding, tiebreaker stuff that always, comes into play at the end. So what intrigues you the most? You're kind of the micro and the macro with this game.
Yeah, I like that you pointed out the division element, because that division tiebreaker, if you do find a way to catch Detroit and you tie him up, that division tiebreaker is going to be likely the second tiebreak behind head-to-head record, which could be a split. If someone tries to peddle the narrative to you this week about, the Vikings can't win at Soldier, I'm going to arm you with the stats from the last decade. Vikings are 6-3 in their last 9, and they've won 4 in a row in Soldier. Now, maybe it doesn't feel like that because the games
Justin
are always ugly. There are a lot of odd numbers, a lot of prime numbers in these scores. There've been 2 19-13 games. There's been a 29-13. There's been a 16-6. I mean, you're lucky to score 20 if you go to Soldier, but the Vikings have handled them the last several years, and now they get a crack at Caleb Williams, and I think this will be another fun one for Brian Flores. And the Bears just got their hearts ripped out of their chest, like on par with the Hail Mary, I would say, considering you're taking on the Packers and you have a 46-yard field goal to beat them, blocked field goal at home to lose, and really crush your 4-6
to a team you haven't beaten in like 5 years.
You're probably not going to the playoffs. Like that, they are in arrears. They made an offensive coordinator change. Like they're going to have emotional baggage coming into this football game that I'm not sure they'll recover from. So again, and I'll try to look at the early line. I'm guessing it's out. This is another game that I don't care how you win, but you should win the game. You should be 9-2, and then the season gets really fun and really interesting.
Look at this division.
I did not see it
man.
on FanDuel quite yet.
Oh, I'm going to guess Vikes by 3. I'm going to guess. I don't know. Something close to that.
They still have lines for this week for games that haven't been
Got it.
yet,
Okay. Okay. Got it. This division, though, man. Lions 9-1. Vikes right behind them at 8-2. Packers right behind the Vikes at 7-3. Bears 4-6. They obviously cooled down quite a bit. How do you feel about this NFC North? Big picture, I guess, even too. NFC Conference, there's some huge games that still have to take place today as far as that goes. But, guys, there's only 7 games left here. We're getting down to it.
Yeah, when you look at the playoff picture, though, like the Vikings probability right now, I hate to do this, but it's 95%. And so
what could go wrong?
What could go wrong? But when you look at the Vikings probability at 95, the Packers probability at 77, it's crazy to think of 7-4 Commanders are at 76%. Like it's almost like the AFC is not as locked as the NFC. It feels like the NFC is kind of locked up, but like the Packers could easily get pushed out with these last couple of games because there's more division games to come, and I think that's going to be the next key for this. But you look at the Cardinals, even though they're in the 4th spot, they're a 58% chance, and I think that's the key, being a 58% chance they're the 4 seed. That's why I hate the way this playoff thing runs, because this is one of those years where you wish it was just straight up records.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a 2-team division. Yeah. I still think it's the Vikings and the Lions.
Feels like
the Packers have all kinds of fraud particles that I'm weirdly not hearing as much about as I did hear about that kind of thing.
Isn't that weird? Isn't that
weird? It's like I haven't heard a peep about DVOA. It's crazy.
Weird.
I wasn't gonna bring that up, but yeah, I've been waiting for Vikings are not as good as they think they are. But yeah, it's not. I haven't seen it.
Well, they check out statistically like the Vikings do. They have been a top 10 at least team, maybe top 5 in a lot of categories for most of the year of like the EPAs and the DVOAs and all the ones that people usually use against them.
Hey, before we get called out for not bringing this up, I want to, if there's any Titans fans there, I do feel a little sympathy with the way
there aren't any Titans fans, Sam.
Okay, there's none, maybe just none in existence.
You saw that stadium. It was all purple. No, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I'm sure Locked On Titans will be all over this.
Oh, for sure.
The penalty, I don't think I've seen a Vikings game where the Vikings benefited so much from the whistles. You had 6 points directly taken away on the hit on Addison, which was debatable. 7 points thanks to the defensive holding that extended a drive. You would have had to punt. And then 4 points as their touchdown got taken off the board, illegal formation. So there's 17 right there. See you, Ron. Ron had to jump. 17 right there. And what was the penalty discrepancy? 12-2, 13-2 today?
It was crazy,
That was nuts.
Well, they got the bad end of of all those illegal formation things, and that's something that is like so inconsistently called, and it's been frustrating all over the season.
I
don't think linemen know where they can line up or not. It's like super difficult for them to get themselves lined up or to re-strategize. Linemen are really good at being very specific about where they line up, whether they're on the guard's toes or on the guard's, the middle of their foot, or whether they're, this deep or that deep. You can make that adjustment if there was clarity on where they are and aren't allowed to line up, but there is not. It is not consistently enforced. So like, I really feel for the Titans on that one. But you know what? We've been on the wrong side of ref things, and I've said every time, get good then. Don't need the if you don't want to need the ref call, then don't need the ref call. Yeah, like you shouldn't have to rely on that. If you lose for by two scores and you say, yeah, but the refs, sorry, you got your butt kicked. Yeah. That's not good enough. Ref calls go against you sometimes, they go for you sometimes. The Vikings were on the good end of it this time. They were on the bad end of it a couple weeks ago. It is luck. And if you need luck to win, then then you didn't win. I'm sorry. And the Vikings beat them up and down the field all day long. So I don't have sympathy for them when they need it, and I'm not going to have sympathy for the other team when they need it.
For sure. Wildly frustrating when it's inconsistent, too. Like, just call it the way you're calling it early on. I want the same thing in the second half, late in the fourth quarter as well. But you're right. It's just part of the game. Human element is just part of the game. Final 60 seconds or so. Parting thoughts? Anybody want to unload the clip here? Vikes Tights tonight, today. Bears up next. Any just parting thoughts? Anything else that we may have missed, Sam? Like the penalties you just went over. By the way, I pulled them up. 13 penalties. 13. What, Luke? Any idea off the top of your head what the average amount of penalties per team per game is? I'm assuming 4 or 5, 6.
I don't know, but based on talking to Locked On Titans before the game, the Titans have to lead in it. They're like one of the worst at that. This happens to them a lot.
Got it.
Like the illegal formations, the just like discipline, illegal contact, that kind of stuff. And sometimes refs will get they'll know. Like refs watch tape too, and that guy's really physical. We're gonna call him really tight because we know he's got a reputation for it, and that gives you like that really ticky-tack illegal contact, which is a call I absolutely disagreed with. But I do think that if you overturn the calls, Vikings still win. Like if everybody just gets the call they were supposed to get, Vikings probably still win.
You had the most first downs awarded via penalty of any game all year per the CBS broadcast in the Vikings' favor.
Wow.
And that includes 2 fourth downs on the second touchdown drive. Offsides on a failed sneak was not going to convert. Offsides on Sweat. And then I think
probably because he was offsides. I actually am
maybe
on a sneak you start like that, like an inch forward. It probably is just going to kill you.
Yeah, you could be right. And then again on the Addison hit, maybe there's a subjective element of he's defenseless, and therefore that's an illegal hit.
You leave your feet, you gotta eat the call.
I don't think the contact was illegal in itself, but maybe there's a defenseless element there. I did want to give a shout out to Trent Sherfield, who made, I think, the first time a gunner has had field awareness at the goal line and down the ball. Like,
it felt good.
He kept his arms, kept his feet in front of the goal line. Good job, Trent Sherfield. Now they gave up a 98-yard touchdown, and it was all for naught. But good job. I'm proud of you.
Yeah. 13 penalties for 91 yards. Vikes, 3 penalties, 35 yards. 7, to your point, Sam, 7 of those 13 penalties went for first downs. 7 freebie first downs. That's absolutely huge. Anything else from the Week 11 slate out there in the NFL? Jets let Anthony Richardson drive down the field in a 1-minute drill, and Jets go down again. That's pretty hilarious. Pittsburgh.
Is he bouncing back? He just needed to go in rice for a little bit.
Well, you know what he needed? He needed a KOC pep talk. There's nothing like a good KOC pep talk. That's what he needed.
You're a bad dude. You're a bad
man.
dude.
You're a bad.
Hey,
you're going to play in this.
Darnold
league
is
for a
fueled
long
by
time.
it.
Yeah, that's right. Pittsburgh, Baltimore. That was a great game. Pittsburgh came out on top. Anything else? Closing thoughts?
Kirk is kirking. Big
Oh,
loss
is he
last
already?
week, and he's down. Well, I don't know if he's playing badly, but they're losing 14-3 to Bo Nix, and they could drop to 6-5. That could get dicey for Atlanta.
Classic Kirktober falling apart right after.
Vikes win their 3rd in a row, 8-2 on the year, 4-1 this Vikes team on the road this year. Final score in Nashville, 23-13. Huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. You can go check out Ron every Tuesday. That's the Ron Johnson Show. Luke crushing it over on Locked On Vikings. Sam Ekstrom, our captain on the Minnesota Football Party. Again, join us tomorrow. That's every Monday and every Thursday. Make sure you like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. November 24th, week from today, Vikes Bears, noon kickoff in Soldier. Another Vikings postcast episode. Should be another good one. We'll see you next time. But until then, signing out.